All right, we'll call to order the Beaumont Planning Commission meeting,
Do you want to go ahead and call the time for me, please?
6:02.
Thank you. I'll do roll call. Commissioner Tinker is absent. Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Vice Chairman Voss?
Here.
And Chairman St. Martin is absent.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Kyle, any adjustments to the agenda?
There are none.
Any conflicts of interest? Nope. Okay, any one person may address the Planning Commission on any matter not on this agenda. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment form provided at the back table and give it to the city clerk. There is a 3-minute time limit on public comments. There will be no sharing or passing time to another person. State law prohibits the commission from discussing or taking actions brought up by your comments. Item number 1, approval of minutes.
Move to approve.
Second.
And this is for both minutes? Is that the intention?
Yes. For both August and October.
Okay. Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Vice Chairman Voss?
Yes.
That carries.
Item number 2, variance V 2017-0013, parking requirements at an existing building.
Thank you, Planning Commission Chair, members of the Planning Commission. So staff is in receipt of a variance application for one of the buildings as part of Plot Plan 05 PP02, which included a condition of approval related to parking on those buildings when they were approved and subsequently constructed. The variance form of approval is subject to the decision of the Planning Commission, in which it may approve, conditionally approve, or deny the application. The decision of the Planning Commission shall become effective immediately upon its rendering unless an appeal is filed. So that condition I referenced in the first sentence is 3.7, and that states that the permitted use at this location shall be limited to a warehousing and distribution use. Parking and other site improvements are proposed in a manner that may preclude other more intensive industrial uses. So in January of 2015, staff presented a similar item, not exactly the same thing, requesting a clarification to that condition related to the parking requirements for that plot plan. And that was for the smaller of the two buildings that were built on the site. In that scenario, we had a manufacturing use that does food manufacturing, and they were looking at purchasing and occupying the smaller of the two buildings, as shown on the site plan I provided. And they were in the process of purchasing an additional parking lot for their employees because the existing employee parking on the smaller building is very small, and it was inadequate for their needs. So we came back for a condition clarification stating that, or requesting the Planning Commission to clarify whether the intent of that original condition was to just limit it outright or limit it based on the number of parking spots, and if the business purchased additional parking spots off-site or nearby, if that really met the conditions at face value, and whether they should be allowed to expand the use intensity for manufacturing. And the Planning Commission voted to do just that, is if they purchased additional parking off-site to meet the needs of that business on a case-by-case basis. The intent of the condition was there because the parking, which was the hindrance on the site plan, would have been alleviated. So that's what happened in January of 15. So now we have the applicant tonight, and they similarly do food manufacturing and food processing. They don't make pork rinds, but they make a different type of food. And they're looking at purchasing the 444,000 square foot building, so the larger of the two, located at 415 Nicholas Road. And they've been working with staff on gaining the necessary approvals to open a food manufacturing business. They've been working with the local utilities to provide will serve letters and service agreements and so forth. And in their due diligence process, they asked, okay, well, what's going to happen with this condition on the site? We have a certain amount of parking spaces on site, and what are the parking demands that the code requires for our type of business use? So the code as it's written today requires 1 space per 500 square feet of manufacturing space and 1 space per 1,000 square feet of warehousing, as well as 1 space per 250 square feet of office. So if we slice and dice the building out as proposed, the requirements are set forth in that staff report, and those would basically total 808 spaces on site. So the site currently contains 156 personal vehicle parking spaces and 74 truck parking spaces that are tandem, and those are in the northeast corner of the site related to truck, and that doesn't count any of the truck dock parking spots whatsoever. Those are not included in the parking count. So working with the applicant, they've provided a business plan that talks about employing roughly 300 people on site. And food manufacturing that we're familiar with and what they're proposing will operate in 2 shifts or possibly 3 shifts in the future, but current operation projections are 2 shifts. So they run basically 150 employees each shift. And if each employee drove their own car to the site every single shift, that would necessitate about 150 parking spots. It's likely they probably won't all drive their own cars. There'll be some sort of carpooling or public transit utilized for the type of business, but either way, 150 parking spots. So that leaves 6 spaces extra for customers or for the public or things like that. So when we look at the parking demand in the municipal code, the requirements are on a rough average citywide for few business types. So we have industrial, we have manufacturing, warehousing, retail, there's restaurants, bars, those types of things, but very limited in terms of the amount of uses that are in the parking code. And then when we look at buildings of this size, it becomes apparent that maybe the code never imagined a building that's 440,000 square feet. So what we really have is an application of the code that says 800 spots. We have a business that their business plan is showing they need roughly 150 plus trucks. So we have an excess of 650 spots that would be required to be built, constructed, and striped on site that may never actually see a car parked on them. And that's kind of how we're looking at it from staff's perspective, is we try to work with each of the businesses and see what is going to work with their business as well as what the code has and come to a happy medium. So what we're looking for is a case-by-case basis review of the proposed business, including their actual business plan, and looking at the number of spaces. If approved, the variance shall have a 1-year time frame in which the grantee of the variance must establish the right of approval. So they would have to move in and establish their use, that business, within a year, or else the variance approval will be null and void. It cannot be transferred to other applicants. So they can't just get the variance here and just say, okay, we're going to transfer it to Nicole's company and they're going to have 800 employees. So that just can't happen. It'll be isolated to this building for this business based on the application and the variance if it was approved. In order to grant the variance, Planning Commission must make all of the following findings, and those are listed 1 through 5. And I provided the site plan of the building. So the 156 parking spaces are all along the east side of the building. Like I said, the truck parking is on the back side. There's additional personal car spaces on that diagonal northwest corner, as well as up against the property line within that area as well.
Is that counted in the 156, that
Yes.
diagonal?
Yes. So it's a big building. They want to employ a decent amount of people in there, but we feel that the conditions of approval that staff's put forward basically allow us to monitor the subject use, and if there's issues on parking moving forward, we'll be able to identify that and kind of figure out what's going on with it, and if need be, bring something back to Planning Commission for review. I doubt that's going to happen. They are looking at potentially a second phase and purchasing additional parking in a new building in the future, but that's so far off that we can't really hold them or condition them to that because they don't have that in the process yet. Lastly, we received a email letter today addressed to the Planning Commission. They have 4 made items of concern related to the variance application, so I don't know if you've had a chance to review that, and if you have not, go ahead and take a minute or so to review it, and if you have any questions on the application, on the business itself, what staff's feeling are, or need a response from staff on any of the 4 concerns on the email or letter, just let me know and I'll do my best to answer questions. Thank you.
Yeah, so what is, maybe that's better for the applicant, what is the nature of the business? And I'll ask them directly because I have some, how the operation would handle on there. We do have the letter on here. I know for, a couple of the points, Potrero is progressing. When is that expected to, I saw the city website listing that the bids are out. When is it expected to break ground?
I don't want to put Public Works in a bind, but we're hoping if all goes well, we'll be awarding bids and under construction in 2018 sometime.
Okay.
I can't say if it's going to be like summer or fall.
At that time, would the truck routes be reevaluated to potentially show preference to Potrero and Oak Valley for freeway access rather than through some of the residential neighborhoods? Or could it be reevaluated?
I'm sure that when we establish new routes related to industrial traffic, the truck routes will be assessed and looked at. I can't guarantee that the existing truck routes will be eliminated, but I think that it's fair to say that there should be a truck route established on 4th Street moving towards the west connecting to Potrero. I think that's a no-brainer, so that'll be established. I do not believe the truck route is actually on that residential street portion of 4th Street.
Okay.
There is official truck routes going on 4th, south and north on Veely, and then going over to 1st into California. So it becomes a matter of enforcement versus actual planning or establishing a truck route.
Okay. Did you look at other cities that have had large buildings go up recently with what their parking code may be for manufacturing uses?
I researched it, and they're similar to our code, which looks to be outdated. I found other cities do consider over-under on 20,000 square feet. So certain logistics uses, they're taking, like, parking the first 20,000 square feet of a business at a certain number per square foot. And then when they get over that, there's a larger number per space. So I think cities are getting to that, where we're saying, okay, we have a 1 million square foot building. We want to encourage manufacturing within the city and the state of California, but does it make sense for this business to invest a sizable amount of cash in a parking lot that will rarely be used, if ever? So I think we're going to be seeing that on businesses that come up in the future, is really what can be done on site, what's realistic to house on site in terms of parking. So we may see more of these variances come forward on a case-by-case basis. If it was Amazon, knowing that they have 2,000 employees and they're smashing it in here on 156 spaces, staff would not be in support of the application. So we're kind of treating them on a case-by-case and bringing them forward as we see fit to Planning Commission.
Okay. And then kind of on the first point of the email, some of the parking, or it appears that there may not be as much enforcement out there about storage on the street.
Yeah, there's been recent concerns with existing businesses storing tractor trailers on the street. So we're addressing that with code enforcement and the police department and kind of educating the different businesses that are down there, that because there's vehicle code that allows you to do certain things, but there's also conditions of approval placed on the businesses that doesn't allow you to just park trucks on a city street in relation to that business for an extended period of time. So we're working with it. I'm not sure if the person submitting the comments is aware that the variance is on a business that's not in operation today. They may have been understanding that it was on an existing business that's contributing to that parking problem, not a new one that has yet to have a problem.
So we could add as a condition on here that all parking for the use shall be within the off-street parking compliant with the city municipal code.
Yeah, all parking related to the business shall be conducted on site or something like that.
So passenger vehicles, trucks, so we'll cover everything there.
Yep.
Okay.
Jessica?
I don't think so. No questions.
It doesn't look like there's adequate parking for any use, right? If I didn't do the math, but if it's a 400,000 square foot building, you would need 400 spaces minimum. How did it get approved?
With a caveat that we were going to look at it on just warehousing alone, and even though warehouse is one per 1,000,
You still need 400.
I think they were thinking about whether they were actually going to utilize the whole building or additional parking provided off site.
It's a lot of warehouse uses, even 1 per 1,000 is even a lot of parking spaces.
Yeah.
I mean, when we look at the code, I think that 1 per 1,000 makes sense on a 20,000 square foot building. Mm-hmm. I mean, 20,000 square feet, you're going to be warehousing, you're going to have some employees, 20 spots.
It should scale.
That's pretty reasonable when I look at a site plan and you'd have a building with a certain acreage and you plop down 20 spots. Mm-hmm. But when you go larger exponentially, you just can't carry the same factor on the parking. It just doesn't work.
My final concern is at that shift change. So there's, we say 156 spots and 150 employees. So at 6 o'clock when that shift change comes, do we expect that it's just going to be perfect, that all 150 are going to pull out and the next 150 are going to pull in? Or is there a gap in that shift? Because at that point, there's not enough space. You're going to have a long line of people waiting for all these other 150 to leave.
Exactly. I think the applicant would be able to answer that one. Going with the other issue, which is, okay, they're going to figure out a way to park on site. There is additional room on site to stripe spots, specifically on the east side of the building. This business is not intended to use the cross docks, even though the building was built with cross docks. So the east side of the building will most likely not be used for truck base, and I think we studied it, and there could be additional 60 to 70 car spots striped over there if need be. And I think that if the business runs into a situation where they need additional parking, that would be the space that they're going to provide it.
Okay.
Do I need to open a public hearing to talk to the applicant? I'll open the public hearing at 6:21.
Took my question for the applicant.
Oh, well, you can ask it.
No, you already did.
Would you please come forward?
Leo Cho from Grace Partnership. We are working for CJ. Am I here to answer your last question?
Yes.
I've been to these similar hearings for CJ, and similar questions always seem to come up. They will schedule the shifts in a certain way that the plant will not be shut down at the shifts, right? And so there will be some people getting off on like 5 o'clock, and some people at 6, some people at 7. So there will be transition of cars and people within manageable manner in terms of parking and traffic flow.
Okay.
Is there for you?
Yeah. And like how hospitals do their shift changes where you kind of roll them in so they don't have a.
And name is Chan, also from Grace Partnership. And for the food that they will be making is more of the Korean food,
Okay.
like the snack, the seaweed snack rice, crispy, those things. And also they have some of noodle and rice. They do stuff for panda noodle as well. So
Okay.
noodles and dumpling in those lines. Those are the food that they'll be doing.
And so right now it's anticipated as 2 shifts of 150, but potential to add a 3rd shift for 24-hour operation? Is that?
I think they always have that potential increase, but in reality, I have not seen 3 shifts working in any plants.
Okay.
Any questions?
I don't think so. I have one, but you asked it.
Okay. Are there any public comments? Okay, we'll close the public hearing at 6:23.
So the only thing I would state in here that I didn't see it written that the all parking shall be on site. If that was written in here as the conditions, if I missed it, my apologies. But if not, I think that's something that we need to add in there so that there's.
Yeah, it kind of goes without saying, but I think it's important to reinforce it.
Yeah.
So we
exactly.
can go ahead and add condition 1.11. Parking related to the business shall be restricted to the site, comma, no parking related to the business shall be allowed on the street,
Yeah, permitted on the
permitted in
streets.
public streets.
Just kind of like you said, it just reinforces the intent of the municipal code.
I'll make a motion to approve with the added condition.
I'll second.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Voss.
Yes.
All right, that carries.
Item number 3, appointment of a general plan task force member.
I don't have a great fancy staff report for this one or
We just need to
PowerPoint
talk
or
about it
anything.
and
I
pick
think
one.
that you can talk about it, and if you have a feeling on who wants to be on there or would like to make a nomination, go ahead and do so. And if you want to fight amongst each other, you can do that. If you want to rock, paper, scissors for it, I don't know how you want to break ties, but that's up to you. I'm going to stay out of it. Thank you.
You're on it, right?
I'm on it, yes.
So it's between you and me, or do we want to wait for the other two?
You know,
Do you
we
feel
know
some
we
sort of
noticed
way?
at the
You wanna
last.
be on it?
I could go either way. If you want to be on it?
I'd say same way.
It's been a good.
Actually,
it's been a
I
good
actually
program
thought
to
you
be
were
part
on
of.
it.
So I've enjoyed my time on there.
Well, I'll volunteer. But do you guys think we should wait for the other two? I mean, if they have some great desire to be on it.
When is the next task force meeting scheduled? Are we into January at this point? That was kind of what the talk was at the last one.
I wish I knew for you.
It says
January.
There we go.
All
So,
right.
yes, for upcoming meetings in January and May.
I just got to read. I mean, it was noticed at the last meeting that we're going to add it to the calendar to discuss. So I think we're
We
okay
should
to.
pick.
I think we're okay to pick.
Yeah, well, I know that Commissioner St. Martin specifically didn't want to be on because he would have volunteered when he could have.
Yes.
So, okay, I'll volunteer if
I'm good with
that
that.
works.
I'm good with.
Someone want to nominate him?
I'll nominate him.
There we go. Second?
Second.
There we go.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Chair Voss.
Do I have to abstain?
You can agree to the
Okay.
nomination.
I agree.
Okay.
The the next meeting coming up on that, I think it's going to be honing in on a preferred alternative. So it'll be a good one to be a part of.
Sounds good. Are there any development director comments?
None.
Anything else? All right, meeting adjourned at 6:27.